Hey, Cap fans, Rick here. I made a little mistake in today's episode. I was talking to Bob about a shelf talker for Galactic Storm, and I erroneously named the artist as Sal Buscema. It's really John Romita Sr. I'll post a pic of it in the Captain America Comic Book Fans Facebook group, and you can see it there. But my bad. It's really John Romita Sr. So now, on with the show. Greetings, Cap fans, and welcome to episode 109 of the Captain America Comic Book Fans podcast. I'm your host, Rick Verbanis, and as always, I'm joined by the best gosh darn co-host out there. That is Bob Lucius. Oh, Bob. Honey, I'm home. Oh, I forgot. I'm not married.
What? All right, you got me. You got me. I was thinking to myself, all right, he's going to try to come up with a movie or television bit. So, and I was like, what are my favorite movies from 1992, right? I mean, several pop into my head, but I don't know what that one. That sounds familiar. I should know it.
Well, but what if I continued to walk in my delusion and then reach into the fridge, pull out a carton of milk, and just start drinking it?
I would probably still draw a blank, Rick.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would be Michelle Pfeiffer as Selena Kyle.
There it is.
Batman Returns.
Batman Returns. Yes. There you go.
Yeah. So why am I picking that one, Bob?
Well, I think it has something to do with that glorious year of 1992.
It is. And in fact, not only 1992, but the number one movie in June of 1992 was Batman Returns. And that just so happens to be the month of the comic that we are reviewing today, Captain America 401, which is After the Storm. And in addition, who else does Michelle Pfeiffer play? What other superhero character does Michelle Pfeiffer play in the movies?
She does play Janet Van Dyne.
Yes. Who happens to also not only a big, at least when we're recording this, a big trailer dropped for the new Ant-Man movie.
Sure did.
Right? So it's timely. And Janet Van Dyne also is a character that is in the comic we're covering today in Cap 401.
I have to admit, Rick, I am a little disappointed. I love Batman Returns. Great movie, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Danny DeVito, great as the Penguin. Yeah. Great movie. But I was hoping, since we were focusing on 1992, and I knew you were going to do a movie gag, I was hoping you were going to jump out of one of those big cakes and sing me happy birthday.
Under Siege?
Under Siege, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the name of that actress?
Erica Aliniak, right? From Baywatch.
Yeah, yes, right? Totally.
Yeah. Steven Seagal movies. Man, he has not aged well.
As
yeah, right. Good point.
I look on like Facebook or, and I see some friends or, family members that are like, doing like, oh, this was me 10 years ago and here's me now. And I'm like, no,
whoa,
no, you don't want to. No, if you saw a picture of me 10 years ago and you saw a picture of me now, you're like, what happened?
Right. Yeah. That's why my LinkedIn profile photo is like 14 years old. I just noticed that the other day. I was like, wow, I look really good in that photo. My wife says, that photo is 14 years old. I took that in the living room of our old house in California. That's why it looks so good.
Yeah.
Not quite sure how to take that, but
I think I mentioned on this podcast when I went to go get my license at the DMV, and it was like I think I shaved my head like 5 years ago. Right. And back in the day, I had good guy hair. Right. And so I go to get my license redone, and the woman behind the counter, she sees my old license, and then she looks at me. She's going, I don't remember the exact words she said, but it was like, wow, life's been tough. Something like that. And I'm like, screw you, but I don't say that, right? Because
Oh, because you want your license. Yeah.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I was like, ugh. Anyway, yeah, yeah. Let's just say I'm follically challenged compared to where I was 10 years ago.
Well, follicles happen, man.
All right. So what else are we covering today? Well, we're going to get into Cap 401. And if you had listened in the last episode when we had our guest Mark White on, he did talk about this issue as being a pivotal issue where Cap struggles with his place in the world, right? In his place on the Avengers, which is his world at this particular point. And whether or not he still needs to be part of that. And we'll get into the story that leads up to that, because there's this huge crossover, Bob, back in 1992 across a lot of the Marvel books back then. Definitely all the Avengers and the Avenger tie-in books, right? And the solo Avengers. And it was called Operation Galactic Storm, the Kree-Shire War. Now, Bob, I am going to hold up here and I'll show you. Now, I'll post a picture of this in the Facebook group. And if you're not a member, check it out. Captain America Comic Book Fans Facebook group. There is something I got on eBay, I think. Yeah. And do you know what this is, Bob?
That looks like it might be some sort of comic shop promotional item, right?
It is. It's called a shelf talker. And so it's something that sits on a shelf, because this actually, the bottom portion bends out. So that way, when you put comics on there, this little graphic sits underneath the comic so that people can look on the wall and go, oh, here's a Galactic Storm tie-in. Oh, over here's a Galactic Storm tie-in. It is. It's a smart little promotional way, right? But behind it, when you get through all the comics, the very back, there is a image of Captain America doing his best Uncle Sam impersonation, pointing at you, saying, Captain America wants you to team up with the Avengers in the battle against the Kree and the Shire. And do you know who this art? Can you probably figure out what art this is?
I'm guessing just from you, man. It would have to be Zach.
No, it looks nothing like Zach.
No, I know, but
I'm really disappointed.
This is why you would get it.
No, I'm getting it because it's nostalgia, Bob.
Oh, okay.
It reminds me of 1992 when I was just a guy in college. But no, this is Sal Buscema.
Yeah. Well, it is Sally.
Yeah. Anyway, it's in black and white. Yeah. And then with some blue lettering on there. But yeah, anyway, I picked that up on eBay, and it's kind of cool.
Did Sal do the art for that, or is that a borrowed image?
No, he did it just for the promotion.
Just for the promotion. Oh, mm-hmm. Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the Facebook group, Bob, I love it when our listeners go onto the Facebook group and like comment on the episodes. I have two that I wanted to cover with
two listeners.
No, we have at least four.
Right. Good.
Okay.
Good. No, I lost a couple. I was worried.
No, I have two comments on Facebook that I want to talk about. So, in episode 106 and episode 107. So I post them up there on the Facebook group, saying, "Hey, everybody, the new episode's out. Here's what it's about. Here are the links, and blah blah blah." And then people go underneath and they comment. Well, you know what? On episode 106, which is the one we did from 1971, which was Cap and Falcon versus Spider-Man, we didn't get any comments. Bob. None. You commented, but that was it. And I was really surprised, not because we didn't get any comments. I was certain I was going to get cursed out by the listeners saying that they had the Bob Lucius song stuck in their head.
Right. Earworm.
Right?
Yeah.
But no one did.
Nobody, yeah.
Apparently, I'm the only one who had that stupid song stuck in my head for weeks.
Yeah, I still need to get that isolated as my ringtone. So,
You really should.
yeah,
If
that's
I
going
were
to be
you, I
awesome
totally
in
would.
meetings.
You don't mute your phone when you're in meetings, Bob?
Not if I have a cool ringtone. No.
Oh, well, that would be a cool ringtone, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
A song about your name? Come on.
right. Exactly. Who would mute that?
All right. I know what? I am throwing down the gauntlet, Bob. I'm throwing down the gauntlet. You need to come up with a Rick Verbana song.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. I can do that. I'm known around my house for jingles.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm a real jingle sort of guy. I'll put anything, cooking dinner, anything. I'll put it to music. I'll sing it. I'll sing it along. They hate it. So
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be original. Yeah. You could
yeah.
put it to a well known tune, change the lyrics like I did. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got my homework.
All right. But someone did comment on episode 107, which was the last episode. And well, sorry, the last one that came out. I keep forgetting when we're recording these things. But it was the one about Trick or Treat, and the one that you got wrong. Grant Ball came to your defense. Come on, Grant. I thought you and I had an understanding, but whatever. So the Michael C. Johnson, he corrected me on something, and it is now something that I will remember probably for the rest of my life going forward.
Yes, right.
What's my favorite candy, Bob?
Reese's Pieces, not Reese's Pieces.
Right. So I've always, I don't know if it's where I'm from or whatever, but I've always called it Reese's. Right. I mean, that's what I call it. So he said, Rick, I need to take issue with your mentions of Reese's. These are cups belonging to Reese, hence the apostrophe S. If they were yours, they'd be Rick's, not Rixie's. Reese's, not Reese's. A good mnemonic is to remember that it rhymes with pieces because, Reese's Pieces, not Reese's Pieces. Rhymes with pieces, not feces. Anyway, great episode. So thank you for that, Michael. I will now hopefully remember how to say correctly my favorite candy.
You got to appreciate when somebody not just listens to the episode, when they're cleaning their house, driving their car, but they're actually paying attention to the details. Right. So kudos to Michael.
Well, he could be paying attention to details, or I could have just triggered him. That could have been that thing that has bothered him his entire life whenever he hears someone say that. Or he could just be someone who cares enough to make sure I don't make that same faux pas.
That's right. Nobody wants to pass the mistake. He called me out on psychopathy as well. So
that's true.
And as
I still think it was a word you made up.
I clearly it wasn't, and I don't know why I said that. Yeah. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I made it up. Let's keep going. Yeah. I think it was the Orange Jameson's talking, but who knows?
Bob's got a time limit. I don't know if you folks know this. It's like, he's like, all right, how quickly can we get this episode over? If we ever go long, you can always blame me. It's never going to be Bob.
That is true.
It's never going to be true. Like, he's never going to stop and go, hey, Rick, I've got a story about that.
Right. Yeah. True enough. Right. Yeah. I look at I'm like, all right, someone just did a 30-minute commute. All right. Next window is the person with the 45-minute commute. Oh, this person's now he's listening on his way home. Yeah, I have little tick marks on my clock.
So basically we should get to it is what.
Good idea. Yeah. Let's dive in.
Okay. All right. So we are going to be covering Operation Galactic Storm Fallout. It's called After the Storm. And so Bob, I don't know. Not everybody probably read Operation Galactic Storm, or if they were like me, they probably haven't done it for 30 years. Should I give a synopsis?
I think you should, Rick, because I will be honest with you. I've read bits and pieces of it. I read like mostly Captain America stuff, but I didn't read all the tie-ins and everything, even back in the day. Certainly back in 1992, I was busy doing other stuff, and I haven't really since. It was a lot of different tie-ins for a lot of a lot of series that like weren't like really the normal reading material for me anyway, and probably for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of folks.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. All
It
right.
was
So I'm
eclectic, right? It was an eclectic mix of books.
yeah, I think it was like Captain America, Iron Man, Quasar, maybe Thor, and of course Avengers. I think it was all Avengers related. West Coast Avengers, you know. I don't think it was like and Spider-Man. You know what I mean? Like I think it was mostly Avengers or Avengers related books. All right, so I'm going to go into marvel.fandom.com. They have a synopsis on here that I'll read. Listen, if you don't if you already know this part of the story, you can probably skip ahead 2 minutes. War comes to the solar system. Captain America goes to meet Rick Jones, who's been having dreams of Captain America with a bulbous tentacled head. During the meeting between Rick Jones and Captain America, Rick Jones is taken captive by the Shire Imperial Guard, who probe Rick Jones in an attempt to learn where the isn't that always the case, Bob? When aliens come to the planet, they pull someone away and they probe them.
There's always some probing going on. Yeah,
It
I
really
know.
is.
Worries me.
Who probe Rick Jones in an attempt to learn where the Psych Magnetron is located. After fighting a Kree sentry, Captain America and the West Coast Avengers tracked down Rick and rescued him, but not before the Imperial Guard was able to get what they wanted. Quasar then went in pursuit of the Shire. Quasar soon finds himself in the middle of a fight between the Imperial Guard and 2 Kree operatives, which is over Captain Marvel's negabands. Atlas took the bands and upon activating them, switched places with Rick Jones, who had arrived on the moon without an air supply. Atlas was defeated by Wonder Man, who then freed Rick Jones from the negabands. Meanwhile, back in Kree space, the Kree Eternal Ultimus was recruited by the Supreme Intelligence. During their investigation of the destruction of the Starcore space station, the Avengers discovered that the culprits were the Shire. Learning that the Shire and Kree were at war with each other and were using Earth space as hyperspace midway point, which was destabilizing the sun, Captain America then divided the East and West Coast Avengers into 3 teams. One team was sent to the Kree Empire, another was to remain on Earth, and a third one was sent to the Shire Empire. The rogue Shire princess, Deathbird, returned and joined forces with the Shire, while Supreme Intelligence revealed his newly created strike team consisting of super-powered Kree Star Force. The Avengers team sent to the Kree Empire was attacked by Star Force due to the actions of Iron Man, forcing the team to surrender to the Kree. Meanwhile, the Avengers team that was assigned to the Shire Empire got sidetracked as they ended up in a firefight between the Kree and Shire. The Imperial Guard mistakenly assumed that the Avengers were there as allies of the Kree. During the battle, Thor destroyed the Shire Stargate after sending Gladiator through it. During the skirmish, it is discovered that a Skrull operative was disguised as a Kree. Through the use of her magic, Cersei, she's one of the Eternals, Bob.
Thank you, Rick.
Helps the Avengers escape Kree captivity. The Kree Star Force attempt to intercept them, as it would help them in their bid to restore control of the Kree Empire to the Supreme Intelligence. Back on Earth, the Avengers team left behind failed to prevent the theft of Marvel's negabands by the Imperial Guard due to the unprofessional actions and attitude of their team leader, U.S. Agent. The Shire ship was chased by Quasar and her, whom were forced to fight the Imperial Guard. Quasar damaged the star drive, stranding those on board, by which time the Imperial Guard had already transmitted 2 negabands to Shire space. Using the power of the negabands, the Shire created a portal in space which would permit them to send the nega bomb directly into Kree Empire via Earth space. Wonder Man and the Vision boarded the ship carrying the bomb to stop its use, which was being piloted by the Starjammers, who clashed with the heroes until they learned what their mission was, at which point they abandoned the negabomb. In the Kree Empire, Deathbird assassinated the current ruling Kree leaders, which resulted in the Supreme Intelligence regaining control of the Kree. Star Force defeated and captured the Avengers team, after which the Supreme Intelligence ordered their execution. Goliath, and I'm pretty sure this is Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye. Goliath was able to convince Deathbird to free the Avengers, though they were forced to leave Captain America behind. The team headed out to space in an attempt to stop the Negabomb, which was found floating in space by a Skrull ship which commandeered the bomb. Majestrix Liliandra began to have second thoughts about using the Negabomb, but was convinced to stay the course by her advisor, Araki. Starforce attempted to assassinate Liliandra, but she was defended by not only the Imperial Guard, but also the Avengers. Lilandra ordered the cancellation of the mission, but was unable to recall the Negabomb as it was now under Skrull control. Back on Hala, Captain America was forced to fight a series of old enemies. They turned out to be constructs that were created by the Supreme Intelligence. Meanwhile, the rest of the team, led by Iron Man, were racing to intercept the Negabomb. During a clash between the Imperial Guard and the Avengers back on the Shi'ar throne world, it was revealed that Araki was actually a Skrull imposter, which convinced Lilandra that the war needed to end and peace restored between the Shi'ar and Kree empires. But first, the Negabomb needed to be stopped. Her attempt to stop the Skrulls was defeated by the Super Skrull. Quasar was warned by the Skrulls that they would detonate the Negabomb in Earth space if he interfered with their mission to deliver the bomb to the Kree Empire. Quasar let them continue. Let's pause there for a minute, Bob. Do you think Cap would have, if they threatened, like, listen, if you don't let us take this bomb over to this other galaxy to destroy this other galaxy, we're going to detonate it in your galaxy. Do you think Cap would have let them through?
Probably not. Because Cap would find a way. Right? There's always a way. That's Cap. So,
yeah, I agree.
Right.
So Quasar let them continue, prioritizing the investigation on the sun's sunspot activity. With the help of her and Binary, Quasar pulled the sunspots, which were generated by antimatter, into the quantum zone. All right, we're getting to the end here, Bob. Vision and Wonder Man attempted to prevent the delivery of the Negabomb by stopping the Skrull ship towing the bomb. The two Avengers teams that were sent to the Shi'ar and Kree empires then arrived, but they are too late as the bomb detonated with Wonder Man still on board. The Shi'ar were victorious, but they didn't celebrate their victory as their long-distance scans let them witness the cataclysmic devastation brought about by the Negabomb, which resulted in the death of billions. The fallen Avengers were recovered by Thor and Quasar, having been saved by Cersei's magic, including Wonder Man and Vision, who were at the epicenter of the explosion. Back on Hala, Captain America was recovered by Deathbird. In the aftermath, the Supreme Intelligence revealed to the two of them and the rest of the Avengers who had arrived that the destruction caused by the Negabomb was part of his master plan to kickstart the evolution of the Kree. Captain Atlas asked the Avengers to avenge the Kree by killing the Supreme Intelligence, after which he and Dr. Minerva committed suicide via the use of a disintegration beam. The Avengers debated what to do, and they split into two factions. And this is the important part of the story we're covering today, Bob. One was led by Captain America, which was against murdering the Supreme Intelligence, and the other led by Iron Man, saying he should be executed. The latter team then attacked the Supreme Intelligence, defeated the constructs he created, and killed him with Black Knight's energy sword. After which, Lilandra arrived, claiming the Kree Empire for the Shi'ar Empire. Deathbird was made the viceroy of the conquered territory, with the Star Force as her personal guard. Unknown to them all, this too was part of the Supreme Intelligence plan. His matrix had survived and was uploaded into a nearby starship. Any questions, Bob?
I think that just about summarizes it, Rick. That's a lot. That's a lot going on, though.
It is. I saw you nodding off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long story.
It
Complicated.
is.
It's a complicated story too. I mean, it's
Mhm.
not like, a lot of comics, these big arcs, even the big tie-ins are fairly simple and straightforward, but this one was a very complicated one.
Indeed. All right. Aren't you glad we didn't spend 4 episodes covering those?
I'm a little bit, although I'm disappointed I didn't get to read the Wonder Man tie-in issues.
That's true.
Yeah.
All right. So that brings us to Captain America 401. This is after the storm. So basically, they're back to Earth. The Avengers are here, and Cap isn't having it. He's not happy with how everything went down. So, as I mentioned before, this has a cover date of June 1992. So, I think it probably hit, maybe, March, April of 1992. What were you doing in March or April of 1992, Bob?
Let's see, what the hell was I doing? I was living in Yuma, Arizona, and it was hot,
Mm.
super hot, and
Hmm.
I was like a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps at the time. Who knows what I was doing? I was probably, doing what first lieutenants in the Marine Corps do, getting drunk and preparing for war.
you know, Putting those two things in the same sentence is a little scary.
Yeah, it is a little bit, but I guess that's how you get through it. So, yeah. So, not quite Galactic Storm. It's funny, Rick. When I went to military college, it was at the height of the Soviet Union. So I was
Mm.
super prepared. I had my Red Army handbook that
Mm.
they published every year. It was like a study of the Soviet military, and I was raring to go against the Soviet hordes. And by the time I graduated from college, the Soviet Union was gone, defunct. Right? It was crazy times back then.
Yeah,
So
indeed.
yeah.
Yeah. I think what was happening in 1992? Bill Clinton was going into office, right?
Yeah, it was right around the time, I think, the first Iraq War, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I was just finishing up my senior year in college.
yeah,
Yeah. Interesting times.
yeah. Good time.
And so who were the creators back then? So Mark Gruenwald was the writer, um, which I think you probably could have guessed because it'd be hard not to be Mark Gruenwald in a 10-year period. The penciler was Rick Levins, inker Danny Bellondi, colorist Christy Scheel and Gina Going, letterer Joe Rosen, and the editor Ralph Macchio.
Yeah, I knew you wanted to do it. There you go.
All right. You want to talk about the cover? Tell us about the cover, Bob.
So interesting cover, Rick. Right? It's Cap. I think you and I have probably at one point in our careers, if not just this week, have sat at our desk looking exactly like Cap is looking right now. He's sitting there with his shoulders slumped and his arms on the handrest. It's a little bit of a top-down look. So you see his desk. He's got his shield there. He's got all of his phone, his pen stand, his in and out box. And you can tell that he's just very sort of lost in thought, right?
Mm-hmm.
He almost looks like sad or depressed or,
Mm-hmm.
maybe those aren't the right words, but it's dejected. Dejected is the word I'm going for. And then
Mm-hmm.
all around him, you see the heads of various folks. So you see, Scarlet Witch and Wanda Maximoff. You see Dennis Dumphy and Falcon and Peggy Carter and Mockingbird. You see Crossbones and Thor and Iron Man. And so all these characters that were prominent in various parts of Galactic Storm or who will be in this story are featured. So, and he's clearly thinking about all these different people, right? I'm assuming that's why they're there. These are people that are their memories, their words, their actions are weighing on him in some way.
Yeah, no, it's a good description. Absolutely. And it has a Captain America logo in the red, white, and blue. Above that, it says very prominently after the storm in the font of the Galactic Storm. And I think they were just, basically like, hey, everybody, if you read Galactic Storm, you got to read After the Storm. And then the logo up at the top is the corner box logo is a charging Cap. Looks like it's done by Ron Lim, and it has $1.25, Bob, and the Comics Code Authority.
The stamp of excellence.
Is it?
No, well, for your mom and dad, it is.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So we get to the opening splash page, and there is Captain America with his in uniform with his shield strapped on his back, so over his shoulders, and he is standing in front of a table with his left fist down and his right palm down, with his fingers stretched out, and there's shadows on his face, so you don't see his eyes. And before we get to that, I'm going to read, Bob, the opening, because there's a lot of times we don't read the little top portion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the technical term is blurb.
Thanks. And it says, Steve Rogers, born in the USA, raised to cherish the ideals of democracy, endowed with a superhuman physique and driven to be the most capable combatant in the world. Now, as both lone crusader and leader of the renowned Avengers, he fights an ongoing battle for liberty, justice, and the American dream. Stan Lee presents Captain America. I don't think I've ever read that before, that particular one.
A good one. It's a good one.
I like it says he fights for liberty, justice, and the American dream, not the American way.
Right. That's a different guy.
Yeah. Because we all know Cap supports the American dream. That's what he's all about.
I also think it's interesting. We can go back and forth about it. I think we could do a whole show about this, right? But when Cap was created, the idea was to create somebody with a superhuman physique, but also an intelligence to go along with that, right? And sometimes they mention that, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes they focused on the physique, but that is equally important, I would say.
That's a really good point. I think that is so overlooked and underappreciated. I know there are times that has been brought up that his intellect was also increased. I think times I could recall that it being mentioned was when he was, studying battle plans and studying history of war, and when they put him through those types of the U.S. Army. Put him through that type of training, that his mind was able to capture all of that. And he's a master strategist. And that's part of the serum, part of the super soldier serum that has allowed him to have that, which really makes the fact that the character and the morals and the ethics behind all of that is what makes him Captain America, right?
That's right.
That's what makes Steve Rogers so special, is the fact that, he's got this advanced physique and he's got this advanced mental capacity, but without that core center of who Steve Rogers is behind it, that's what makes him the hero.
Right. And that's what we saw unfold, right, in the much reviled Hydra Supreme arc, right, was what happens when you have somebody with the superhuman physique and the intelligence to go with it, but without the moral and the values that Steve Rogers has, the Steve Rogers we know.
Yeah, that's such an excellent point. And I'd say to everybody out there who hadn't read the Hydra Supreme story arc, whether it was Secret Empire or the Steve Rogers Captain America volume, it's worth a read for that reason. And unlike when you were in it and you were just kind of like appalled by Steve Rogers is Hydra, Steve Rogers, and just being so upset by it. Now that it's over and that it moves on, it's almost like a what if story, right? Like you can read it and appreciate, like, it's a good story.
It really is. I mean, and it is a cautionary tale, right? It's supposed to make you think of what could have happened had the wrong man been selected, or woman for that matter, right? If a Clinton McIntyre, or we've seen what happened with Burnside. We've seen other people who have tried to step into the shoes. And it all comes back to who Steve Rogers was before the serum, right? Even as they say in the movies, it's being a good man first, before being a superhero or a super soldier.
Yeah, 100%. So then Cap says, all in favor of having me step down as the chief executive and commanding officer of the two branches of Avengers, signify by saying I. Whoa. That's a hell of a opening splash, Bob. That kind of pulls you in, right?
That's a beautiful, beautiful one. Yeah.
So then we cut to the next page, but it's not just the next page, Bob. It is a double page splash. Now, what does that mean for listeners out there who don't know that? And by the way, I'm hoping for our loyal listeners who have been, listening to this podcast for a while, they're learning a little bit about art and they already know the answer. Like, they're like Horseshack and Welcome Back, Kotter. Oh, right? Yeah, and they're like, I know the answer to that. I know the answer.
Kotter. Yeah, that was a great show, by the way.
What?
Yeah. I was just the other night, I was thinking to myself, who are the main characters, right? Obviously, Mr. Epstein. Yeah. Not Mr. Epstein. Epstein was one of the kids.
Oh, Epstein, yeah. With his notes.
Yeah.
With his notes, like signed Epstein's mother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's where I learned the technique. Didn't work for me either. Yeah, right? Horseshack, Vinny Barbarino. Was it Washington?
Yeah, Washington, yeah.
Washington.
With the big fro.
Yeah, with the big fro.
And then there was all those other kids in the background that like very, occasionally had a speaking part, but not really.
Yeah.
I was looking at a picture of that the other day. I don't know what showed up on my like my feed or something like that. And I saw that and I was like, did we really think they were teenagers? Like those actors? I mean, like they look 30. Right. You know what I mean? Or 25 or 30, I guess it's no different than, Beverly Hills 90210 or whatever.
I just remember thinking Mr. Carter's wife was pretty cute.
Oh, yeah. You know who else I thought was cute back then?
Not the principal.
No, Bob.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Yeah. No, I was thinking around that same time period, Mindy from Mork and Mindy.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Pam Dahmer.
Yeah, Pam Dahmer.
Yeah, it was around the same time, right?
Those are good shows. Yeah, around the same time.
Nanu.
That's right. Yes.
All right, so we get to the double page splash. And Bob, this is, first of all, look, I'm going to admit, I'm not a big Rick Levins fan. Okay. But he did a nice job here. Because what we're looking at, we're inside the Avengers mansion. And that hollowed table, the Avengers table, right? It's that big round table that has an A on it, and then there's chairs all around it. Well, in this particular case, we have the East Coast Avengers, we have the West Coast Avengers, so we have a very, very large group of people here. And one thing that I noticed, Bob, I don't know if you noticed this, but I did. The ladies are all sitting in the chairs.
I did notice that. Yeah.
And the men are allowing the ladies to have their chairs. Very gallant, very, very, very gentlemanly like.
Yes.
Except for Spider-Woman. She's poor Spider-Woman. And it's not Jessica Jones or Jessica
Drew, right? Yeah.
Yeah, not Jessica Drew Spider-Man. It's the one from Secret Wars with the orange hair.
Carpenter. Yeah.
What's her name?
I think Julie Carpenter.
Yeah, something like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. She's the only one that's standing. But I thought that was interesting. So, all right, Bob, go around the room. Tell the listeners who is here in this room.
Oh, for goodness sakes, man! This is.
Did I put you on the spot?
Yeah, you did. But I mean, I can name probably 90% of these. Obviously, we've got Quasar and Colonel Jameson. We got Spider-Woman, Star Fox. Who's that guy in the back that's got the shoulder pads? I don't.
I'm sorry. Who is Colonel Jameson?
Isn't that the guy in the purple?
No, that's Hank Pym.
Oh, is it Hank?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was the Colonel.
No.
I didn't, Hank, I don't know why I didn't think he had such light hair. All right. All right. My bad. So, but again, who's the guy with the shoulder pads
Oh,
in the back there?
yeah. He's an Hispanic guy. He was kind of new. Um, hmm, I am living lightning. I think
Oh,
it was his
yeah.
name,
All right.
right?
Santos or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Miguel.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So then we got Star Fox. Is Hercules? Is that
Hercules.
Black Knight? We got Black Widow.
You passed on the guy next to
Well,
Hercules.
I wasn't. I'm not following an order here, Rick. This isn't.
You were totally going in order. You went
Yeah, I
from
was,
to
but
right.
then I went to Black Knight. I was going to start a couple of the ladies, mix it up a little bit. I wasn't
Okay,
going to
who's
leave
the
them for
guy
last.
between Black Knight and
Isn't that Gilgamesh?
It is Gilgamesh.
All right.
I thought for a minute there you forgot about him.
Oh, that's so sad.
You don't get it?
No, I don't get it.
Isn't he known as like the forgotten one?
Oh, I don't know. Is he?
You forgot?
You know who's going to call me out on this one? Michael Johnson. Because I don't know if you know, but he is a huge fan of that legend.
What
Gilgamesh legend?
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah, no, he's known
he's
known as the forgotten one. That was hence my joke. Bob.
Oh, okay. It was a good joke.
I thought so.
Some folks are going to love it. Black Widow, Cersei.
Wait, finish up with the guys standing behind the girls.
All right, this is going to go on all night, folks. All right, we got Hercules, Iron Man.
Hercules.
Okay, good. Yeah, Rick's super excited. We got who's the icy guy there? Chris? No.
Are you serious?
I don't know these people, Rick. I read Captain America. I don't read Avengers and West Coast Avengers. These aren't people I know anything
Who's
about.
the icy guy? That's the Vision.
Oh, is that Vision?
That's the all white Vision.
Well, all right. I've got a really tiny view here, and I wasn't aware that was Vision. I can't really see him.
Yeah, it's Vision.
All right. Well, we got Goliath, Clint Barton Goliath. There was Thor in the foreground. I think that's the backside of Wonder Man. If I may get to the ladies now, we've got She-Hulk and Wanda. We got Mockingbird, right? Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. Is that supposed to? I don't know who that is in the purple.
I think it's Janet Van Dyne.
Is that Janet? All right.
Yeah.
I thought it looked too young to be Peggy. We've got Ms. Marvel.
Wait,
right?
Which Miss Marvel?
Monica Rambeau.
Okay, so that's Captain Marvel.
Captain Marvel. Cersei and Black Widow.
Yes. And I would just point out that Thor during this time period is actually
Mr. Masterson.
Eric Masterson. Yeah.
I know nothing about him.
He was like the replacement Thor, and then he became Thunderstrike. Anyway, so thank you for pointing that out.
I hear a little AC/DC in my head when you said Thunderstrike.
Oh. Excellent job.
That'd be a nice piece to own right there, Rick, wouldn't it?
Yeah, except I'm not a big Rick Levins fan. So after Cap said, "Everybody say aye if you want me to resign as the leader," and then you have Black Knight saying, "Come on, Captain, none of us is going to vote for that." And then Tony Stark says, "Look, you think the contingent Avengers responsible for terminating the Supreme Intelligence, who, I might remind you, is responsible for the deaths of untold billions of Kree, ought to have some disciplinary action brought against them. The majority of us here have voted against that. That doesn't mean we want to take your job away. It just means that many of us disagree with you as far as what constitutes appropriate conduct in a time of war." And then we have Clint Barton as Goliath. This Galactic Storm thing has left a lot of us really stressed out, Cap. All of us, the two space teams as well as the home team, busted our humps the past few weeks. How about we adjourn this debriefing already? We can always do a follow-up if need be after we had a little R&R. Hey, Bob, what's R&R mean?
I'm glad you asked, Rick. It's short for rest and relaxation.
Where does that come from?
That's a military slang term. Back in the day.
They don't still say it?
Yeah, we do actually still use it. At least I assume they do. I've been out for a while now, but it really does come from World War II era.
Okay. Very well. Just one last item. Tonight at 19:30, I'm giving a seminar of superhuman ethics. I urge you all to attend. And then we have Thor here. Captain, is it mandatory? I got to see my boy before he forgets he even has a father. No, voluntary. Just asking. Meeting's adjourned. And Cap turns his back to everybody and walks out. She-Hulk is like, whew, I've never seen him, Cap, so tense. Black Widow thinks, poor Steve. But then Quasar flies in the room to chase after Cap. Excuse me, everybody. Hey, Quasar, stop being a show-off. Say, Cap, wait up. It didn't want to bring it up back there and waste everyone else's time with it, but, I was thinking of taking a leave of absence for the Avengers. As I told you during my membership interview way back when, the cosmic entity responsible for my quantum bands appointed me protector of the universe. And well, I don't think I've been doing such a hot job living up to that title by staying earthbound as much as I have. Who knows, if I had found a way to be a better protector, I might have learned about the Kree-Shire War sooner and been able to save some lives. You're thinking of leaving immediately? I realize this is short notice, but I want to check in on the Kree Empire, see if there's anything I can do for the survivors. I do want to attend your seminar tonight, though. Don't worry about it. You're not one of the Avengers I feel needs a lecture on ethics. Thanks. You'll be a hard man to replace, Quasar, but the Kree, the universe, undoubtedly needs you more than the Avengers do. Keep me posted on your activities, you hear? Will do, sir. And whenever you're in the vicinity, you'll always be welcome here. Once an Avenger. Thanks, Cap. It means a lot to me. You're the greatest. And he flies off. Yeah, but the greatest what? And you know what's interesting about this, Bob? Do you know who the writer of Quasar was at this time?
I have no idea.
Mark Gruenwald.
Was it?
Yeah. Oh. So Mark created, I think he helped create, or either created or helped create the character of Quasar. And that was a book that he was on for quite some time, not nearly as long as he was for Captain America, but he was on Quasar for quite some time. So I believe he was writing it at this time. And so that's why probably he wanted to dive a little bit more into Quasar in this story. So then Cap walks into the communication center, and who's there waiting for him but Peggy Carter, and she's surprised to see him. Cap! And she goes up and hugs him. Oh, so good to see you back. Were you in outer space all this time? I was so worried. Sorry. You should slap me when I'm start acting like a mother hen. She looks embarrassed. It's all right, Peggy. The Falcon and U.S. agent were not at the debriefing. What's their mission status? Oh, we received a call 3 days ago from your old enemy, Flag Smasher. It had something to do with a friend of yours I never met. Demolition Man? And they went to investigate. D-Man? Put a tracer on that Quinjet and called John Jameson. I want to follow up on it at once. Sorry, Steve, but your pilot hasn't reported in since you left for space. I think he may be out looking for Diamondback. You mean she... Haven't heard a peep from her in almost 3 weeks. And then Cap kind of sits in a chair and collapses and puts his head in his palms of his hands as he, on elbows on his knees. I go away and the whole world falls apart. Peggy goes to comfort him. And then we clip uh, and then we skip over to next panel, and we see, who do we see, Bob?
We see Crossbones, Rick, all incognito, wearing a trench coat and a fedora. And we see him with his hand wrapped around the upper arm of what appears to be Diamondback, who also is not in her normal costume, but is wearing herself some sort of jacket disguising her.
Yeah, the whole incognito thing is BS. I mean, it's kind of like when Benjamin Grimm, right? The Thing,
right,
wore a trench coat and a fedora. Like, I'm sorry, you're too big, and your face is still showing.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, but it's the Riverside Avenue on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and it looks like it's kind of snowy out, right? It's winter time, which is strange, Bob, because this book is coming out in March or April. And Crossbones looks at Diamondback and says, "What's the matter, Ratzel?" And he calls her Ratzel instead of Rachel, because, he's punning like that. "For weeks now, you've been begging me to let you out of our abandoned subway station hideaway. And now that I finally give in to your whining, you're embarrassing me for walking like a thief. You know very well why I'm too weak to walk straight, Crossbones. I'm starving. You haven't given me a decent meal in weeks. Yeah, I guess I've been a little bit stingy in the grub department, but you gotta admit, it did the trick. Took the fighting spirit right out of. What do you usually call yourself? Diamond Butt? Anyway, Toots, you and me are going for a field trip. I'm sick of the big rotten apple. Give me a sec to hotwire this jalopy." And then he busts a window on a car.
Is that a Fiero? Is that a Pontiac Fiero, Rick?
Wow, it could be. It very could be, because it is a small car. It's a two-seater. Bob, I will say back in the day when I was probably 14, 15, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get my license soon. You know what I want to buy? I want to buy a Pontiac Fiero. I had my eyes set on those. Those are cool looking cars, right?
They were terrible cars, but yeah, they were cool at the time. I remember wanting one myself at the time, but thank goodness I didn't get one.
It was such a small car. And my parents were like, "No, you are absolutely not getting a Fiero. That's like a death trap. You get hit, you're crushed. You're done. Yep. You need a car they want me at a tank or something."
Right. I got a Dodge Daytona. That was my first real car.
Oh yeah, what year?
It was a 1989.
Wow.
1989 Dodge
You almost
Daytona.
got a brand new car.
Yeah, right out of college, second lieutenant. Got a
Holy
brand new
crap!
car.
Your first car was almost brand new.
It was brand new. It was right off the lot. Yeah,
really.
$10,000.
Wowzers!
Yeah, it's candy apple red. It's beautiful. Yeah.
What was it again?
Candy apple red.
No, the car.
Oh, the Dodge Daytona.
A Dodge Daytona.
Yeah.
You ready for this, Bob?
Uh-huh.
My second car was a Chrysler Laser.
A Laser?
Wasn't the Laser and the Dodge Daytona basically the same car?
They were basically the same car. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was a Laser.
Well, I heard that in my head too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So much cooler sounding.
That was my second car. And you know what? Here you go, Bob. My Chrysler Laser, I bought it used. That was my second car. But guess what it had on it, Bob? It had a bra. A leather bra.
Oh yeah, now that's class. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And there's people right now cringing.
Yeah,
there's probably a ton of people listening right now. They're like, "What the heck is he talking about?" But then if you know, you know.
Yeah, I wanted a bra on the Daytona, but that was just a bridge too far. I couldn't swing it. Yeah,
mine came with it. Yeah. Mine just came with it, so I didn't pay extra for it. It came with a leather bra. Now, people listening, they're like, "What is he talking about?" Well, so what we had back then was an add-on that you put on a car, right? It was like an additional type of thing, right? And you would lift the hood, and then you would wrap this leather or faux leather or whatever piece of cloth over that also went over your headlights, but had cut out so your headlights would work, and then cut out so your grill could get air. But it was the front of your car, so that way when you drove and like you bugs would hit it, it wasn't ruining your paint.
It was just rubbing it raw underneath the bra.
I know. Where the rest of your
Yeah.
paint's fading from the sunlight.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was not.
That was not. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was a cool looking thing. I mean, like,
Was.
nowadays, like, maybe they would look at rims or something like that, or I don't know.
I hadn't even thought about bras on cars for a long, long time. It's one of those things that it comes and it goes, and you didn't realize that it went.
Yeah,
But it was big at the time. Yeah,
yeah, for maybe 3-4 years. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. My first car that I bought in 1986 was a 10-year-old 1976 Chevy Camaro, V8 305, maroon, and that was a heck of a first car. And I paid for it with my own money. Wasn't but my first car was 10 years old, but still, it was a Camaro. It was a cool car.
That's sweet.
Really was.
Yeah. Nice. Mine was a Datsun B210. B210?
I thought you just said your first car.
No, that my first new car. That was my first new car. With a car that I had, right after I graduated from high school and stuff. I got was a hand-me-down I got from my brother-in-law. I bought from him, and that was like an old beater Datsun B210, where it was a stick shift, but it had that, they had this sort of like the rubbery material around the stick shift.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but you could lift that up and you could actually see the road going by underneath. So like you could dump trash out, through the stick shift hole. It was pretty funky, but yeah, that was my first car. The first new car was the Dodge Daytona.
Yeah, my first new car. Oh, I don't even know. Anyway, let's get back to the comic.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Feels great to go mobile, don't it? Where are you taking me? I told you, babe, a field trip. I promise you, you'll like it much better than the subway. I got a nice, peaceful place in mind for you. Real peaceful. No one around but earthworms. You're going to bury me alive? Not exactly. Well, that's scary.
That's a little creepy.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if I heard someone say, not exactly, my mind would go to, no, I'm not going to bury you alive. I'm going to kill you. And then I'm going to bury you.
Yeah. Crossbones is not the sort of guy that like you want to play word games with.
No.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So we cut to the next panel, which is very much what the cover is based on, right? His Cap sunken in his chair. He's very sunken in it, right? He's not sitting upright, right? And he's got his mask down, but his uniform on, his shield on the table, and he's looking at his computer screen, and he doesn't look very happy. Organization's a mess. Keep trying to stabilize the membership, but if it's not one thing, it's another. Reserves are particularly in shambles. Spider-Man and Namor didn't respond to the emergency summons at the onset of Operation Galactic Storm. Guess I can't count on them to be backups. Who's that leave? Oh, what's the use? Maybe I should throw in the towel. Maybe somebody with newer, fresher ideas could keep this ragtag group going better than me. And on the screen, we see Beast, Hellcat, She-Hulk, Falcon, Submariner, Quicksilver, Ant-Man, Rage, Moondragon, all inactive, and then Jocasta deceased. You know who Jocasta is, Bob?
I have no idea. She was with Vision for a while, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was an android like Vision. She
Yeah.
was the bride of Frankenstein, if you don't mind, mind the
Mm-hmm.
comparison.
Okay.
Seems like my style of professional behavior is out of fashion, at odds with this increasingly violent society. Maybe guys like the Punisher, Cable, and Wolverine are the answer to the kinds of threats America faces today. Maybe bad attitudes and lax moral codes are the only way to make headway. The values I've striven for my entire career seem so unattainable in this present climate. But without them, what am I? I'm just going to pause here for a sec, Bob, because this is an important panel. I think this is why Mark White, liked this issue so much. Because here's Cap questioning himself and comparing himself to the more violent characters out there, Punisher, Cable, Wolverine. But at the same time, I'm almost thinking Mark Gruenwald is questioning, right? Right. Mark Gruenwald has been on the book for, I don't know, 6-7 years now, right? Something like that. Maybe 8 years. 8 years, let's say. And I thought we've been down this path. I thought we went down this path when he was like, we've got John Walker, the super patriot becoming Captain America and him becoming I thought we went down this path where it was like, okay, Cap's questioning himself, but no, he realizes his place. It almost feels like Mark Gruenwald is the impetus behind all this. Like, because let's face it, in 1991 and 1992, if you looked at the sales of comics, Captain America was not up there. It was pretty low. And guys like Wolverine and Punisher and Cable were high. And so here's Mark kind of like questioning maybe his place in championing Captain America.
I think you're absolutely onto something, Rick. We've talked about this, time and again before. And, there is this tension, right, between what the public wanted at the time, what was popular in pop culture, and the way that Grunwald envisioned Captain America. And so, yeah, I think he is trying to work that out. And again, trying to make a case for why Cap is still relevant. Even in the 90s, when everything is screaming that maybe he's not. But I don't know, because I will tell you there's, and I'm sure we'll talk about this at the end of this issue. But already I'm seeing some things like from my looking at Cap and thinking, what the hell is he doing? Right?
No, I agree.
Because to me, it's almost not Cap. In some ways.
Yeah, it's like when we were talking last episode with Mark, part of, remember when you brought up the question about Thor and being worthy, and part of it was questioning whether you were worthy?
Yeah.
Was what made you worthy, right? I think the fact that Steve is questioning himself goes to further prove why he's so valuable and in such a a character that we all look up to, is because of issues like this, because of panels like this where he's busy questioning himself, just shows why he's such a character to look up to.
I agree with that, but I think there's a fine line between being introspective about your unworthiness and seeking validation of your worthiness. And so,
you think he's seeking validation right now?
I do. I mean, that very first panel asking for a vote about whether he should stay in charge is different than saying, I'm stepping away because I don't think I can provide the leadership that you need right now. It's clear that I can't. based on what happened,
Hmm.
right, to the Supreme Intelligence and stepping away. But instead, he asked for a vote to either to validate that, yes, they still need him, right? Was he seeking that, or was he seeking a way out? I don't know. Maybe it was one or the other. Maybe, it depends on how you view the situation. But to me, that's bothersome to me that he would like do that.
Huh. That's a great point. Because I can totally see that. I could totally see that he was like, all right, I voted a certain way. You guys went another way. If that's the case, then fine. If then I'm not gonna be here anymore. So everybody say aye. You don't want me?
Right. It seems petulant.
A little bit.
Right.
Yeah. But he is struggling.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I would be remiss to not mention the fact that next issue 402 begins the 6-part story of Capwolf. And who is in Capwolf? Cable and Wolverine, 2 of the 3 people he just mentioned.
Good point.
So yeah. I think Mark Gruenwald is like, if you can't beat him, join him.
Exactly right. Yeah, and add a werewolf.
Yeah. So then we get a, yo, Cap, you in there? It's me, Hawkeye, or Goliath, or just plain Clint, whatever. And I love this next panel, Bob, because this is the one that really looks like the one that's on the cover.
Yeah.
Because of the shadow on his face. And you see Cap just sitting there, slumped in his chair with his shield on his desk, and, and then you see the flagpole behind him, which I don't think it's by mistake, right? Like, that's an important part of who Cap is. And then there's the trash can with all the shredded paper. So he's not answering Clint at the door. I need some advice deciding which costume identity I should go with. Cap? No answer. Peggy said his computer was online, so he was probably here. Guess he left it on and slipped out. That later that evening, we cut to a room where it has the podium where Cap's going to address everybody, and there's a whole bunch of folding chairs. I'm a little disappointed. This is the Avengers mansion.
Yeah.
Really? Do we have metal folding chairs, like the most uncomfortable chairs you can imagine? And there's rows and rows and rows and rows of folded metal folding chairs? Come on.
Some of these guys have a quite high body density. So, those chairs, they got to go through those at a rapid clip.
That's a good point. So there's only 3 characters there sitting. And then there's a bunch of empty chairs. I mean, like a bunch. And who are the 3 characters, Bob?
Black Widow, Clint Barton Hawkeye, and Wanda Maximoff.
Yeah, so Clint decided to go with the Hawkeye costume. And I see the irony too, because these are all 3 reformed
right
criminals, if you will, right? And then there's Natasha. Never seen Steve so tense, withdrawn. I asked him to work out with me, and he turned me down flat. You at least got him to speak to you. I think he's been avoiding me all day. And then Scarlet Witch. I hope some of the others show up soon. Steve is going to be awfully disappointed when he sees this poor turnout for his seminar. Yeah, well, a lot of the guys had to, here he comes. Steve walks out to the podium, and you see the disappointment on his face. Wandy, Iron Man, and most of the West Coast Avengers had to get back to their business, and told me to give you their regrets. Hercules and the Knight went to fly Gilgamesh back to Europe. Crystal's with her baby. The Vision's looking into getting his skin fixed. I get the picture, Natasha. You 3 are it. The ones who really need to hear this aren't here. He looks disappointed. And then he turns around and he leaves. This is pointless. Sorry I wasted all your time. And Clint's like, whoa. And just then, the door opens and there's Thor, a.k.a. Eric Masterson. Sorry I'm late. Did I miss anything? Oh, brother. So they're in the kitchen. 3 of them are in the kitchen. And Natasha is talking with Hawkeye and Scarlet Witch. We've got to do something for Cap. He's headed for a breakdown. Like, what can we do, Tosh? For starters, I think you should take him out for a night on the town. You mean get him drunk? You gotta be... No. Talk to him man to man. Try to dispel the gloom he's in. You're one of his oldest friends here. Yeah, but cheering up depressed living legends ain't one of my specialties. Sure wish the Falcon could get back. And then we get to Cap's private headquarters, and you see Steve laying on his bed. He's in costume. He's got his mask down, of course, but he's laying there and he's got one knee up and he's got his arms, wrapped behind his head. But Clint comes in and he's pointing at him. Okay, old timer, enough moping around. You and me are going out. Can't, Clint. I've got to stay here. I'm waiting for word about some missing Avengers and some missing support personnel. And I want to be here when... Get out of here. Peggy can beep you on your card, wherever you are. Now, come on. I ain't taking no for an answer. Here, take off the union suit and put these on. And he goes to his dresser and he starts throwing clothes at Steve, and it lands on him. Clint, Don't make me get rough with you, man. I intend to use your bed as a trampoline till you get out that flabby red, white, and blue backside of yours. And he starts jumping up and down on Steve's bed. Think I care if jumping on the bed's against the bylaws? Okay, Clint, stop. You win. And then we cut back to the Pontiac Fiero, right? And we got the 2 of them driving away somewhere in New Jersey. Now, I got to tell you, did you ever watch Sopranos?
I haven't. No, I have not watched The Sopranos.
All right. So for the listeners out there, there's a scene where, I can't remember. One of the guys from Tony Soprano's crew, the guy who's played by the musician from the E Street Band. I can't remember his name.
Eddie Van Zandt.
Yeah, he's driving the girlfriend of one of the crew out in the middle of New Jersey to take her to kill her.
I did see that scene.
Yeah.
I watched that scene on YouTube.
Yeah. And this is reminiscent of that. But actually, this came way before that.
Yeah.
Way before that. But here it is, a car driving through the New Jersey, and it's got all the trees around, and they're going off to this desolate place. Look, Cross, I've told you everything I know about Captain America already. His shoe size, what he likes to eat for breakfast, his unlisted extension, the kind of music he listens to. What more do you want from me? Yeah, plenty more, Ratzel. Plenty more. That junk you told me would be great if I was writing a profile for People magazine. But it's nothing that's going to get me straight. But it's nothing that's going to get me back in tight with the Red Skull. What are we doing here? They're at a gas station. You're going to make a phone call. I want you to call up Cap and tell him you're spending a few weeks skiing with an old friend. You say exactly that and no mess ups. And I promise I'll rustle you up some chow. You act up and I'll see you starve. Oh, okay. And then she calls the hotline and Peggy Carter answers. This is Rachel Layton. I'm skiing with an old friend of mine. Tell Cap he shouldn't worry. Rachel, this is Peggy. Don't hang up. Rachel. I should call Cap. He's been waiting for some wood from her. but Black Widow's there with Peggy. No, Steve needs one night away from all his problems. But I know he's very concerned about her. But the message you pass on to him is so sparse, it would only serve to agitate him further. Here's what I'll do. Hop on a SkyCycle, check out the number, see if Diamondback's okay. Please, Peggy, wait to call him till you hear from me. Cap respects your judgment enough to have appointed you deputy leader, Natasha. All right. So then we cut to the lower west side, and we see Steve and Clint Barton in their civvies walking the streets. Are we almost there yet, or are you lost? Hey, it's been a few years since I called this burg home, Steve. Cut me a little slack, huh? Besides, we're here. This is your idea of a bar. Yeah, let's go in. I'll tell you my theory. And it's a Laughing Horse bar. There's 3 kinds of bars: yuppie bars, lowlife bars, and old men bars. And what's this? A lowlife bar, of course. They're the most fun. I don't know about this, Clint. This is really not my kind of scene. What are you talking about, man? You used to always lecture me about training myself to adapt to any situation I happen to find myself in. Well, were you just blowing smoke? Where should we sit? So they're sitting at a table in this bar. Bob, do you want to describe the bar a little bit to the listeners?
It looks like a great bar, Rick. Yeah, it's, I see, let's see, what do we got there? We got, looks behind Clint and Steve. It looks like we got Popeye, the sailor man, hanging out at the bar, which is great. I see a sign on the wall that says tipping is not a village in China, which is true. Lots of interesting looking folks in there. Looks like Humphrey Bogart playing pool. Looks like is that the Avengers also playing pool with Humphrey Bogart? I mean, the Avengers from the TV show.
Yeah, it's funny you should bring that up, Bob, because if you go to marvel.fandom.com about this particular issue, they do list a whole bunch of characters, both historical and fictional, that are appearing in the bar. So you already mentioned Popeye and John Steed and Emma Peel, the TV show Avengers. But they are also, and we'll get through this as we go through these panels, but there's Dick Tracy. There's the Yellow Kid from one of the, I think, original comic strips of all time. James Bond, Albert Einstein, Minnesota Fats, Groucho Marx, Adams family. They got Gomez and Morticia Adams, and then Lurch, who's their butler. We got Humphrey Bogart, as you mentioned, Reed Fleming. And then from the comic strips, we got Dagwood Bumstead. Also Rod Serling, Elvis Presley. So, yeah, Rick Levins, I guess, was having a little bit of fun here, and he drew a lot of these characters into the backgrounds of this bar.
That's pretty neat, actually. I love when artists, creators do this sort of thing just to draw the eye and just create a little bit of a little extra excitement, right? Things to look for. Easter eggs, things like this are always fun.
So the just comes up to the 2 guys and says, "What'll it be?" And Clint says, "A pitcher on tap, my good woman, and 2 frosty mugs." Come on, Clint. You know I don't drink. I'm a role model for. Not tonight, you aren't. Tonight you're just a regular Joe. But I'm not. I can't even begin to bring myself to pretend to be anymore, Clint. I realized some time ago that every time I tried to put together a regular life for myself, it soon fell apart. Finally, I realized I had a choice to be a good Captain America or a lousy Steve Rogers. Guess which I chose? So you don't have any civilian friends anymore? No. They've mostly all fallen away by the wayside. The Avengers and the headquarters crew are the only people in my life right now. And even they're slipping away. The Avengers may not have voted me out this morning, but as tonight's seminar proved, I've lost the ability to inspire them. And then Clint takes his mug and just slams it down on the table. If that's what you think, then you ought to quit, Steve. You see how much they need you then. Wait, I know. I'll quit too. And the two of us can form our own team. Yeah. And we'll only let guys who have strong ethical principles like ourselves join. What do you say? No, Clint. That's nuts. I'm not about to compete with the Avengers for criminals to fight and emergencies to handle. Well, then maybe you ought to just take a leave of absence. No, the Avengers need me. Galactic Storm has left our ranks very unstable. Steve, just for once, why don't you put your own needs in front of those of others? Listen to me, as your friend, I'm telling you, you need some time off from the grind. You're heading for a job burnout. If that happens, you're going to be no good to the Avengers or yourself. I don't know. There must be something you need to do, Steve, just for yourself, just to get back on even keel. Well, actually, there is. I was in this relationship with this woman. I guess I took things too slowly. Never once let her know how I really felt about her. Then do something about it. Take her in your arms and tell her, man. I can't. She's one of the missing persons I told you about. Oh. And then Clint thinks to himself, I'm a fine one to give advice about relationships with my own marriage on the rocks. I ought to practice what I preach. If I could just... Steve. Tony Stark. Here? Peggy told me where you guys were. Mind if I join you? Sorry I missed your seminar. I had a lot of Stark Enterprises business to attend to in L.A. Just made it back. I wasn't expecting you anyway, Anthony. Right. Clint, Steve and I need to talk alone. Mind making yourself scarce for a bit? What? Okay. Feel like shooting some pool anyway. And that's when he walks up to Minnesota Fats. Our relationship has been on the rocks for much too long, Steve. I'd like to clear the air, if that's possible. A drink? Yeah, Diet Coke. Let's start where it went sour. My armor wars. Where you broke into a government penitentiary and caused a jailbreak? We fought. You sucker punched me and ran, promising me an explanation for the necessity of your actions when it was all over. Instead, you publicly blamed your outrageous behavior on a renegade Iron Man. And when you sent word you wanted to see me, you didn't try to explain one blessed thing. You just said that we were likely to play on the same team at some point in the future, so we better call a truce to our differences. You didn't even try to justify your criminal actions. I was so stunned, I couldn't even press you on it. Things got out of hand, Steve. Once I started trying to confiscate all of my stolen technology, I just became so obsessed. I had to pursue it to its logical end. I knew you could never understand that. You don't believe that the ends justify the means. So I didn't even bother. In retrospect, I should have at least tried. And that brings us to the events of the past few weeks. You surrendered our team, Avengers, to the Kree militia without consulting me, the team leader. The decision to gamble with our lives was not one you should have taken unilaterally. Yes, I know it happened to work out in our favor. Then after Cersei pulled our fat out of the fire, you got steamed with the way she did it and decided to go your separate way. The heck with the rest of us. I just couldn't afford to have Cersei mess with my armor again, Steve. It's not just the source of my power. It's my life support. And finally, most critically, you were the one of the ringleaders of the Avengers execution squad who stormed off to terminate the Supreme Intelligence. I truly believe that conventional standards of morality are inapplicable in times of war. It wasn't our decision to make, Tony. He should have been put on trial, like the war criminals of World War II. You left out that I abandoned you on the Kree homeworld to go after the Negabah. I can understand that one, Tony. I'd have made the same decision. And then we cut to Natasha, who's following up on her promise, where she is. She ended up going to tracing where the phone was, and it was a. This is the phone Diamondback called from, a payphone. No sign of her. I'll ask the station attendant if we saw it. And then 20 miles away, the car is parked, and Crossbones is leading Rachel into the woods. Very much like that scene from Sopranos.
Guided only by the light from the flip-up headlights of the Pontiac Fiero.
Cross, I did what you said. What are you doing? Where are you taking me? Right here, Toots. And then he lifts up the lid from the ground that's covered by grass. This is a former fallout shelter where that muty Magneto imprisoned the Red Skull a few months back. When was that, Bob?
That was in issue 368, Rick.
Don't know how Mags found it, but you could bet your bottom he figured it was a good place to stick somebody he didn't want disturbed. And here's the rope I left last time. Climb down. But I don't think I'm strong enough to climb down or fall down. So then we cut to the next scene, and the two of them are in the chamber. Ha! A mere 10-foot drop. Nothing to it, huh? And he's got his flashlight in looking around this dark area. Look around, Ratzel. This is our new home. We're going to be spending a lot of time down here, you and me. Down here in our hidey hole, I'm going to become your best friend. I'm going to teach you how to be exactly like me. I'm going to teach you the toughness you need to survive. No. Funny, ain't it? After all these years, you're finally getting what you want. I'm finally going to let you join my gang. We cut back to Manhattan. After the bomb exploded and we were revived from that weird thing Cersei did to us, I looked around in a daze, thinking, where's Cap? Then I remembered you were still on Hala, probably dead. You may choose to disbelieve this if you want, but that thought made me... Look, I'm not the crying kind, Steve. I didn't cry at my own father's funeral. But right then and there, I realized that in this crazy business we're in, there's no one I'd miss more than you. And well, you're an inspiration to me, Steve. To a lot of us. We may not think like you or act like you, but we still respect you and appreciate what you do and the way you do it. You're an idealist in a world that is far from ideal. I don't know how you can do it, Steve. How you can keep all the ugliness from getting you, hardening you. I can't. I'm not as perfect as you. Forgive me. Tony, I'm not perfect either. I'm sometimes too quick to judge, too slow to forgive. I appreciate how much courage it took to come here, in a bar of all places, and to level with me like you just did. I'm really sorry our ideological differences bent our friendship out of shape. I miss having you as my friend. I'd like us to let bygones be bygones. And he reaches out, and Tony takes his hand and shakes it. So would I. And then Tony gets up and he leaves. So Steve walks over to Clint, who just beat Minnesota Fats shooting pool. Tony left, Clint. I'm going back to the mansion. Hold on. I'll go with you as soon as Fats here pays up. And then they get to the Avengers headquarters, and who's there waiting for them but U.S. agent. About time you came crawling in, Rogers. Where's the Falcon? Where's right around the corner? And here comes Falcon walking by, and he's got D-Man with him. Dennis, it's you. What happened to you? I thought you. No, to heck with I thought. It's really great to see you, man. And Steve's so the biggest smile we've seen on Steve's face in a long time. And he goes up to hug Dennis Dumphy, but Dennis is just all catatonic and doesn't respond. And Clint thinks to himself, wow, is Steve ever happy? If this doesn't yank him out of his funk he's been in, nothing will. Yo, agent, you did good for once. So what took you so long? I thought you guys were missing in action. Hey, Bob, we had a lot of ultimatum agents taken into custody. Then we developed engine trouble. What am I explaining to you? Your friend's really out of it, Steve. Whatever happened to him in the audit must have traumatized him. I'll get him the best medical attention available. Agent? Yeah. Thanks. I owe you, pal. And he goes up and he shakes his hand. And John Walker thinks to himself, him? Calling me pal? And we cut to the very last panel, Bob. And it's Cap looking a little hopeful. Got a little smile on his face, a little hope in his eyes. Maybe things will work out for me yet. Maybe, in the words of Lennon McCartney, I'll get by with a little help from my friends. The end. Who's Lennon McCartney?
They were in a band, I think. I think that was a band at some point.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds familiar. Can't quite put my finger on it.
Maybe we should ask J.M. DeMatteis.
Yeah, right.
That's his favorite band. The Beatles.
Is it his favorite band? Oh,
yeah, it's favorite.
He did mention that. Yeah.
Yeah. He's more of a Lennon guy. I'm more of a McCartney guy. But you know what? That's okay. We get along.
I'm more of a George Harrison,
Are you?
Namaste.
Yeah. The Dark Horse.
Yeah. Krishna, Krishna. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Hey, did you ever tell you a story about how the Traveling Wilburys got together?
You did. Tell me the story about the Traveling Wilburys.
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a good story, too.
All right, Bob, what do you think of this story?
Good story, Rick. Good story. I mean, it is a lot of grist for the mill, right? I told you I had a little problem with the beginning. It didn't seem very Cap-like to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I really look. The hero of this issue is Tony Stark. Right? And
I love that. I want to hear more. Tell me more.
The two here. I think Clint Barton, Tony Stark.
Mm-hmm.
Clint Barton for being a friend, right? He doesn't always see eye to eye with Steve Rogers. They don't always get along, but he's there for Cap, right? He's an old friend. And that just goes to show that even old friends don't have to see eye to eye all the time. They don't have to get along, but they're there for each other. And he's there for Steve when he needs somebody. He needs a friend. Because even
kind of like a brother.
Yeah, kind of like a brother, right? And Stark, as I said, he's the hero of this book because he built that bridge, right? And everything he said was absolutely right. And Steve's reaction that what exactly did Steve say? He had a little something that he said here that struck me here. Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't
know if it's the same thing, Bob, but I like the fact that Steve admitted I'm not perfect either. It's sometimes too quick to judge and too slow to forgive.
Yeah, that's it right there. And that is a weakness that I think Steve Rogers has. He has a hard time seeing that not everyone around him is necessarily as committed to doesn't have the discipline, or doesn't they don't commit themselves 110% every time to abiding by their values and principles, because that's hard for anybody to do, right? And some folks understand
Indeed.
that, right? They understand that, and they go, I'm doing the best I can, and that's good enough for them. But it's not good enough for Steve, and that's always been Steve's weakness, is that he's never really felt like he's done good enough, which is why he sometimes seeks validation. And I like the fact that Stark, you know, extended that hand, built the bridge, and, you know, was I hate to say it here, but in this case was a bigger man.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And it's like any good story allows each person to find a little bit that they can relate to, and just where it really resonates with them. So this part here, and the things that you're mentioning, Bob, bring back to me why I think I've always resonated with Steve Rogers in those different things where, yes, I've always admired him. I always appreciated him. But in some ways, some things that I feel that resonate with me is that, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, right? And the old Rick used to hold people to the same standards that I held. And then it took a little while for me to realize my standards are not the same as everybody else's, and I have to let that go and realize that everybody else has their own way of doing things, their own point of view, and so on. So remember back in episode 95 was when we had the comic shop guys on, right? We had a couple of my former customers and one of my former employees on. And I look back on that, because this was 15 years ago, and I feel like I'm a different person than I was 15 years ago. Sure, and yeah. And I look back and I feel bad because I was a bit of a perfectionist, and I said, this is my work ethic, and I expected that of the guys that worked at my shop, and that was not rightfully so. So I think Seth and as well as some other employees probably kind of smile when they hear this, and they're like, oh, yeah, he was, but we appreciate it. There was a North Star that we needed to go towards, right? But we didn't necessarily always measure up, and that was my own fault, right? And I think Steve's the same way. I think Steve has this huge expectation of himself, which translates into his fellow Avengers, translates into his colleagues, translates into other people in his life. And I think he's realizing, much like I have, that, you know what, Tony Stark isn't, he and I may not be on the same page, but he may not do things exactly the way I want him to do it, or I expect people to attain to, but we can still be friends. We can still appreciate each other. We can still admire each other and still work towards a common goal.
Right. Yeah.
And did I just take this to a whole nother level?
No, you did. I mean, no, but you're spot on. I think that's exactly it. Because at the end of the day, I think, Iron Man, Tony Stark, he's not doing what he's doing out of ill intention, right? He's trying to do the right thing. And I think that counts for a lot. So even though Steve and Tony may come at a problem from two different perspectives, two different life experiences, and two different solutions, that doesn't necessarily mean he's coming at it from a bad way just because it's from a different way.
Exactly.
And that's where the mutual respect comes from.
Yeah, I hear you. All right, Bob, what's your favorite panel? I don't know. Who goes first? Who goes first on this one?
I'm going to let you go first, Rick, because I'm just impressed that you did all the voices.
I did, didn't I? I really thought I was like, oh, he's too many different voices. I can't do them all. Um, I don't remember who goes first, but if you want me to go first, I can go first. That's
I'll let
fine.
you go do it.
Should I do it?
Do it.
All right. All right. My favorite panel. You know what? I'm going to go with page 10, which I think if you're on Marvel Unlimited, that would be like page 11. But page 10, I'm going to go with panel 4. And this is where um, Cap's laying on the bed and Clint takes clothes and just throws them on top of him.
That was going to be my pick, Rick.
No way.
I swear to God.
Seriously?
I love it. It's so amusing.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
The reason I picked it is because we'll never see this panel again ever. Right? It hasn't come before and we'll never see it again.
Right.
Where Cap's laying on a bed in his uniform. He's got his mask off, but he's laying there in his uniform with his hands behind his head. And there's a shirt thrown over top of his face and pants thrown over his legs. And you know what I mean? Like I just found that humorous.
Right.
Like here's a living legend, Captain America, and here's Clint Barton, his colleague, throwing his civilian clothes on top of him and saying, like, come on, man, get off the bed.
Yep.
That's my favorite panel.
All right. That's a good panel. I'm going to go with the one a few pages before that, where it's that one panel you mentioned, Rick, that we see on the cover. That is, it's actually borderless, right? It's Cap sitting at his desk with the flagpole behind his right shoulder and a video monitor hanging down from the ceiling. He's got his shield on his desk with a cup of coffee, his phone, his keyboard, and he's just sitting there, dejected, right? Looking down with his cowl down around his neck and his beautiful blonde wavy hair and his wastebasket full of shredded paper. But it's just a powerful emotional panel without necessarily a lot of detail, but it conveys a lot.
It really does. Yeah. Well explained. Something tells me that you had this in your back pocket because you pivoted very quickly and had a great explanation.
Nimble. I'm nimble like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What do you think is t-shirt worthy, Bob?
Glad you asked. It's the next page, and it's the last panel on that page. I do like the one, and I would want the word bubble where Cap is just
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like that on a shirt with just because there's so many times throughout the day when somebody says something to me and I go
and you have a shield on your back and shadows on your face.
Right. And I have that same sort of expression of disillusionment and disappointment on my face. So yeah, I'd like that on a t-shirt. How about you?
We're very close, Bob. We're very close in the fact that it is a close-up of Cap with a white background. So we have that. Mine is the very last panel of the story. And that is where we just see the smile of Cap's face. And he has that look of hope in his eyes. And I would also want the word balloons, where it says, maybe things will work out for me yet. Maybe in the words of Lennon McCartney, I'll get by with a little help from my friends. I think that appeals to both Marvel fans and comic fans and Cap fans and Beatles fans. I think that's t-shirt worthy.
I think that's a good choice. It's a good choice. All right. How about what about time capsule? Time capsule worthy.
Time capsule. I'm going to go with the double page splash on page 2 and 3. I was tempted to kind of go in the bar, because there was so many different things from the bar.
Yeah.
But there's so many different time periods. Like what represents 1992? And I was thinking the double page splash from page 2 and 3, seeing that roster of Avengers, East Coast Avengers, West Coast Avengers. Heck, there was back when we had West Coast Avengers. And then seeing this roster of characters that, quite frankly, really points to 1992, because if you think about it, when was the last time you saw Gilgamesh? When was the last time you saw the Living Lightning, or that version of Spider-Woman, right? Or Clint as Goliath, or the White Vision, right? This one totally paints a picture, I think, that is encapsulates that time period.
Interesting. I was going to go with the bar as well, because I think it's interesting. I made a post on Facebook I think yesterday, Rick. In recording time, and it was about how I mentioned the Beverly Hillbillies when I teach my classes on sustainable energy security.
Yeah, I saw that post. Yeah,
and I do it because I talk about how easy it was back in the day, 100 years ago, 75 years ago, 50 years ago, to sink an oil well and to find crude oil, and up from the ground comes a bubbling crude, right? Because Jed was out hunting squirrels and he shot at the ground and crude came bubbling out. And I even sing the song, and nobody knows who the hell the Beverly Hillbillies are among my students.
Can you sing the song right now, Bob?
I cannot. Okay. Yeah. Right. But when I see all that crowd in the bar, and I think of all those characters, and I think how sad, not sad, but just inevitable, right? That so many, when this came out, most people would have been able to recognize those characters.
That's true. Right? That's a good point.
As the years go by, very unlikely that those characters would be recognizable to most people. Maybe Elvis, young Elvis. Sure. But very few of the others. So that would have been a great time capsule for me, because I love those sorts of things.
So which one, Bob?
But I'm not. I'm going with the phone booth that Diamondback had to call Avengers headquarters, because
you love the phone booth. You go. Yeah,
I do.
You've done that.
I do. Because I have used those in the past for desperate calls, and I don't know where we were the other day with my wife. You ever see Dumb and Dumber?
So you're saying?
Yes, of course. Yes. Right. But that scene where the gas man is in the phone booth and he's on the phone, and that really skinny squirrely guy comes up and he's like, "Get off the phone." And the guy turns around and it really upsets the skinny dude who wants to use the payphone, and then he opens the door and punches him in the face and knocks him out. I use that joke every time I do see a phone booth, which is so very, very rare these days. Yeah. And I did it just the other day, and my wife didn't get the joke, right? Because she's not a big fan of Dumb and Dumber. My son would have gotten it had he been there, because we've watched that movie over and over again. But the payphone always speaks to me of the 70s and 80s. But in the 90s, it was already dying out. And you barely see them anymore, if at all.
That's true. Yeah. If only it had an attaché case.
Exactly. Yes. That's where you kept your quarters for the payphone.
All right, Bob. So what are we going to talk about next episode? This has been a lot of fun. We've been going through the decades, right? We did the Cap meets Nick Fury, 64, Cap and Falcon versus Spider-Man, 71, Cap at the Skull House, 87. Now we're in 1992. Should we take maybe a little step back? What do you think?
I'm all for it. Let's do it. Let's step back.
All right. With the new Wakanda Forever Black Panther 2 movie coming out, who's a big antagonist in that movie? That would be one Submariner, Namor.
I just love the fact that you use the word antagonist in a sentence.
Yeah. He was the bad guy, Bob.
Oh, there we go. Okay. Thanks.
So let's do a Namor story.
That sounds great. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was thinking, because a lot of people talk about this period of time with a little gleam in their eye. Okay. We're talking the 80s, but it's Mark Gruenwald, and it's the Acts of Vengeance story arc. Do you remember that?
I do vaguely remember. I remember the principal baddies fighting it out.
Yeah, it was a story about because it was always like, Doctor Doom versus Fantastic Four, Red Skull versus Captain America, right? It was always like these villains were going up against their arch foes. And then somebody had the idea, I won't say who, somebody had the idea to have villains fight characters that they don't normally go up against, and to see how they would do. And anyway, it was a great, I think it was like a little mini series and a crossover called Acts of Vengeance. And so you had the major bad guys, like I already mentioned, Red Skull and Doctor Doom, but Magneto and God, who were some of the others? I think it was like the Wizard, or so, not the Wizard, the Wizard, right? And so on. Anyway, they all got together and like, we're gonna help each other battle our enemies. So there was this crossover. So there was these 3 issues, 365 through 367, for Captain America, and these were the Acts of Vengeance crossovers that took place in the late 80s. So we're just talking maybe like 3 years earlier than this. But the first part is Cap versus Namor the Submariner. So I thought that would be fun to start with, and then we'll get through those 3 issues, and then the end is Magneto versus the Red Skull. So what do you think about those?
I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think a lot of folks maybe read that a long time ago. Maybe they haven't read it since, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to revisit it.
Excellent. So we should do that then. All right, we'll come back then for episode 110, and we'll cover that from 1989, I think it is. And then just give a little foreshadowing, since we're talking about Black Panther movie. I think it'd also be fun, Bob. We should do a Captain America Black Panther story after that. What do you think?
Yeah, that's always a good idea. There aren't that many of them out there, so we should definitely do one.
We did the story where Cap met Black Panther, right? Which was at the end of Tales of Suspense, and we did that story arc. So that was fun. But there was this mini series in 2010 called Captain America Black Panther Flags of Our Fathers, and it was a 4-issue miniseries. I think we should cover that too. That'll be a good one.
Yep, I think that one is not well known. Some folks have read it. Some folks kind of passed that by at the time, but I think it would behoove us to dive into that.
Yeah, it's a World War II story. So it's basically Steve Rogers back when he was in World War II, and it's not the Black Panther you think, but it's one of the previous Black Panthers, one of the kings from that time period in the 1940s. And as a 4-part miniseries, so we'll kind of break that up. So we'll probably break that up. We'll do 2 issues in episode 111, and then we'll finish it up in episode 112. And then in episode 113, we have a special guest coming on the show. And I think we hinted at before, this is a writer. So you can make your guesses, but anyway, that's the next 4 episodes. So come back, episode 110, where we cover Acts of Vengeance, Cap versus Namor the Submariner.
All right, count me in.
Excellent. Well, as always, Bob, it's been fun rapping Cap with you.
It has. I can't wait till next week.
All right. He's Bob Lucius. I'm Rick Verbanis, and you have been listening to another episode of the Captain America Comic Book Fans Podcast.